It happened in broad daylight. One bullet, one target, and one man who saw it coming before anyone else did. He wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was just a single father trying to give his daughter a normal afternoon. But in the 3 seconds it took for a laser sight to find its mark, he became the only thing standing between a powerful woman and a carefully planned execution. What followed would unravel a conspiracy that reached into boardrooms and back alleys alike, test the limits of a father's protective instinct, and prove that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody notices. If stories of courage, justice, and the unexpected connections that change everything are what you're here for, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to witness isn't just about stopping an assassination. It's about what happens when two broken people find strength in each other, and when silence finally learns to roar. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Crystalline was not just a restaurant. It was a statement. Perched on the 42nd floor of the Apex Tower in downtown Portland, it offered views that made the city below look like a circuit board of lights in motion. The interior was all geometric glass sculptures, white marble tables, and chairs upholstered in cream leather that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Soft jazz played through invisible speakers. Conversations were conducted in hushed tones, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the illusion of perfection. This was where power lunched, where deals worth millions were sealed with a handshake and a glass of wine that cost $300 a bottle, where the wealthy came not to eat, but to be seen eating. And tonight, at table 14 near the floor-to-ceiling windows, sat Victoria Ashford. She was everything the world expected her to be: poised, elegant, untouchable. At 38, she had built Ashford Renewable Solutions from a small solar panel startup into a green energy empire worth $4 billion. Her face had graced the covers of Fortune, Forbes, and Time. She had been called a visionary, a disruptor, a woman who refused to play by the old rules. She wore a charcoal blazer over a silk blouse the color of winter fog. Her dark hair was pulled back into a sleek bun. Diamond studs glinted at her ears, subtle but unmistakable. Her phone lay face down on the table. She hadn't checked it in 20 minutes. That alone was unusual. She was waiting. Across from her sat two men in expensive suits. Gerald Pemberton, CFO of Orion Capital Group, and his associate, a younger man named Trevor something. Victoria hadn't bothered to remember his last name. They were here to make an offer. The third offer this month. And like the others, she was going to refuse. "Ms. Ashford," Pemberton said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, "I think you're misunderstanding our intent. This isn't a hostile move. We're offering you a partnership. Full autonomy over operations. You'd retain your title, your office, everything." Victoria took a sip of sparkling water, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. "Mr. Pemberton," she said finally, her voice calm but edged with steel, "I've built this company without venture vultures circling overhead. I don't need your capital, and I certainly don't need your board breathing down my neck every quarter." Trevor leaned forward, trying to inject energy into the conversation. "But the market's shifting. Regulatory changes. Supply chain disruptions. Wouldn't it be smarter to have a financial cushion?" Victoria's eyes flicked to him, and he immediately regretted speaking. "Smarter," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "You think I've survived 15 years in this industry by being reckless?" Pemberton raised a hand, a placating gesture. "No one's questioning your competence, Victoria. We're simply saying that sometimes even the strongest players benefit from strategic alliances." "Strategic alliances," she echoed. "Is that what you call it when you acquire 60% of a company's shares and then gut its leadership?" Pemberton's smile didn't falter. but something cold flickered behind his eyes. That's an unfair characterization. It's a factual one. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut. A waiter approached, hesitated, then wisely retreated. Victoria set down her glass. "Gentlemen, I appreciate the effort, truly, but my answer is no. It was no last month. It'll be no next month. Please stop wasting both our time." She stood, gathering her clutch and phone. Pemberton remained seated, his expression unreadable. "You know," he said quietly, "there are consequences to standing alone." Victoria paused, turning back to him. "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality." She held his gaze for a long moment, then turned and walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the polished marble floor, each step deliberate and unhurried. She refused to let them see her rattled, but she was. Outside the restaurant, the evening air was cool and sharp. The valet brought her car around, a sleek black Tesla that hummed a life silently. She slid into the driver's seat, exhaled slowly, and allowed herself a moment of honest exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. "Board meeting moved to Thursday. Lawson wants to discuss Q3 projections." She typed back a quick acknowledgement, then set the phone in the cup holder. As she pulled out of the garage and into the flow of downtown traffic, she didn't notice the dark sedan that merged into the lane 3 cars behind her. Across town, in a neighborhood far removed from glass towers and marble floors, a different kind of evening was unfolding. Cole Freeman stood in the kitchen of his small 2-bedroom apartment, stirring a pot of spaghetti sauce while his 10-year-old daughter Sophie sat at the table doing homework. The kitchen was cramped but clean. The walls were painted a soft yellow that Sophie had picked out 2 years ago. A Spider-Man magnet held a grocery list to the fridge. A ceramic mug that read "World's Okayest Dad" sat beside the sink. "Dad," Sophie said without looking up from her math worksheet, "what's 8 times 7? What do you think it is?" Cole asked, not turning around. 56. "Then why are you asking me?" She grinned. "Just checking if you're paying attention." Cole chuckled, shaking his head. "You're too smart for your own good. Mom used to say that too." The words hung in the air for a moment, soft but heavy. Cole kept stirring the sauce, his jaw tightening slightly. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years since a drunk driver had run a red light and taken Emily from them. 3 years of learning how to be both father and mother, how to braid hair and sign permission slips and explain why sometimes life wasn't fair. He glanced over his shoulder at Sophie. She was bent over her homework, pencil moving steadily across the page. She had Emily's eyes, dark and thoughtful. Sometimes when she looked at him a certain way, it felt like his wife was still in the room. "All right," he said, turning off the stove. "Dinner's ready. Go wash your hands." Sophie hopped off her chair and headed to the bathroom. Cole drained the pasta, plated 2 servings, and set them on the table. Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti with marinara and a side of garlic bread. But it was theirs. They ate together, Sophie chattering about her day at school, about her friend Mia who had brought in a pet hamster for show and tell, about the upcoming science fair she wanted to enter. "What's your project going to be?" Cole asked. "I'm thinking about volcanoes. Or maybe solar panels. I haven't decided yet." "Solar panels, huh? That's pretty advanced." She shrugged. "Ms. Ramirez said we should pick something that matters." "Solar panels matter." Cole smiled. "They do." After dinner, they settled onto the couch. Cole flipped through streaming options while Sophie snuggled under a blanket, her head resting against his shoulder. They landed on an old animated movie she'd seen a dozen times, but never got tired of. Halfway through, his phone buzzed. A text from his buddy Derek. "Still on for the game tomorrow?" Cole typed back, "Yeah, Sophie's going to her friend's." "I'm free." Derek responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Cole set the phone down and wrapped an arm around his daughter. She was already half asleep, her breathing slow and even. He kissed the top of her head, careful not to wake her. This was his life now, quiet, simple, far removed from the chaos he used to know. And he was grateful for it. But tomorrow, everything would change. Saturday morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the curtains. Cole woke to the sound of Sophie rummaging through the kitchen, likely looking for cereal. He groaned, stretched, and checked his phone. 7:30. Early for a weekend, but Sophie had never been one to sleep in. He shuffled into the kitchen, still in his old army t-shirt and sweatpants. Sophie was perched on a stool, pouring milk into a bowl of colorful cereal loops. "Morning, kiddo." "Morning, Dad. Are you still going to watch the game with Uncle Derek?" "That's the plan." "You're going to Mia's, right?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Her mom's taking us to the Science Museum. Sounds fun. Way more fun than watching grown men throw a ball around." Cole smirked. "You're not wrong." An hour later, after dropping Sophie off at her friend's house, Cole found himself driving toward Pioneer Square, where he'd agreed to meet Derek at a sports bar. The streets were busy with weekend shoppers and tourists snapping photos of the waterfront. He parked in a public garage and walked the 2 blocks to the bar. It was a loud, crowded place with big screens mounted on every wall and the smell of fried food heavy in the air. Derek was already there, waving from a booth near the back. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Freeman," Derek called, grinning wide. "Thought you'd bail on me. And miss you crying when your team loses?" "Never." They ordered wings and beer, settling in as the pregame show started. Derek worked in construction now, but he and Cole had served together overseas. They didn't talk about those days much anymore. Didn't need to. Some things were better left in the past. But as the game kicked off and the crowd around them cheered, Cole felt his phone buzz in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting a message from Sophie or her friend's mom. Instead, it was a news alert. "Breaking. Ashford Renewable Solutions CEO Victoria Ashford targeted in suspected assassination attempt. Incident occurred outside downtown Portland office building. Suspect at large." Cole's stomach tightened. He clicked on the notification, scanning the article quickly. Details were scarce, but the report mentioned that Ashford had been leaving a meeting when someone opened fire. She was unharmed but shaken. Police were investigating. Derek noticed the shift in Cole's expression. "What's up?" "Nothing. Just news." But it wasn't nothing. Cole had seen enough violence in his life to recognize the signs. This wasn't random. This was targeted, planned. He pocketed his phone and tried to focus on the game, but his mind kept drifting. He didn't know Victoria Ashford personally, but he knew her name. Everyone in Portland did. She was a fixture in the local business world, a success story, and now someone wanted her dead. The game ended. Derek's team lost. They paid the tab and walked outside into the afternoon sun. Derek clapped Cole on the shoulder. "Same time next week?" "Yeah, sounds good." They parted ways, and Cole headed back toward the parking garage. As he walked, he noticed a crowd gathering near the corner of 5th and Morrison. Police tape had been strung up around the entrance to a sleek office building. News vans were parked along the curb, reporters speaking into cameras. Cole slowed, curiosity pulling him closer. An officer was directing pedestrians to move along, but Cole caught a glimpse through the glass doors, shattered, bullet holes, spider-webbed across the lobby windows. His jaw tightened. This was the place. He turned to leave, and that's when he saw her. Victoria Ashford stood just inside the police perimeter, speaking with 2 detectives. Her blazer was wrinkled. Her hair, usually so perfectly styled, was loose around her shoulders. She looked exhausted, shaken, but she was standing, arms crossed, chin lifted. Cole watched for a moment longer than he should have. Then he walked away, back toward his car, back toward his quiet life. But the image of her stayed with him. Monday came too fast. Cole dropped Sophie off at school, then headed to his job at Pinewood Community Center, where he worked as a maintenance supervisor. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept him busy. He fixed leaky faucets, repaired broken equipment, and occasionally helped set up for events. Today, there was a conference being held in the main hall. Some kind of green energy summit. Vendors, speakers, community leaders. Cole had been tasked with making sure the sound system worked and the chairs were arranged properly. He was adjusting a microphone stand on stage when he heard her voice. Testing. 1, 2. Can you hear me in the back? Cole looked up. Victoria Ashford stood at the podium, holding a microphone. She wore a navy dress and looked far more composed than she had 2 days ago outside the crime scene. Sounds good, someone called from the audience. Victoria nodded, then stepped aside as a technician adjusted the volume. Cole finished with the stand and moved off stage, trying to stay out of the way, but as he passed near the side entrance, he noticed something that made him stop. A man in a black jacket stood just outside the glass doors, partially obscured by a concrete pillar. He wasn't looking at the building. He was looking at his phone, but his posture was too rigid, too focused. Cole's instincts, honed by years of training he'd tried to forget, kicked in immediately. He scanned the area. The man's jacket was too heavy for the weather. His stance suggested he was waiting for something, or someone. Cole moved closer to the doors, pretending to check a window latch. The man glanced up briefly, then back at his phone. A moment later, another man appeared, this one in a gray hoodie. They exchanged a few words, too quiet for Cole to hear. Then the man in the black jacket reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, metallic. Cole's blood went cold. A gun. He didn't think, didn't hesitate. He pushed through the side door and stepped into the man's line of sight. "Hey," Cole said, voice calm but firm. "You lost?" The man in the black jacket froze. His hand, still in his pocket, tightened around the weapon. The man in the hoodie took a step back. "Just waiting for someone," Black Jacket said, his tone clipped. "Yeah? Who? None of your business." Cole took another step forward, closing the distance. "Actually, it kind of is. This is a community event. Security's tight. So unless you've got a reason to be here, I'm going to have to ask you to move along." The two men exchanged a glance. Then, without another word, they turned and walked away, disappearing into the flow of foot traffic on the street. Cole stood there for a moment, heart pounding. He pulled out his phone and quickly typed a message to the center's director. "Suspicious activity outside main entrance. 2 men, 1 armed. They left, but keep an eye out." Then he went back inside. The conference continued without incident. Victoria delivered her keynote speech, talking about the future of renewable energy and the importance of community investment. Her voice was steady, confident. If she had any idea how close danger had been, she didn't show it. But Cole knew. And as he stood in the back of the hall, watching her speak, he realized something unsettling. Whoever wanted her dead wasn't going to stop. The conference ended just after 3 in the afternoon. Attendees filtered out through the main doors, shaking hands, exchanging business cards, discussing solar subsidies and wind farm investments. Cole watched from his position near the stage, pretending to coil audio cables while keeping an eye on the exits. Victoria Ashford was still inside, speaking with a small group of city council members near the refreshment table. She smiled politely, nodded at the right moments, but Cole could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes occasionally darted toward the windows. She was on edge. Smart. He finished packing up the equipment and wheeled the cart toward the storage room. As he passed the main entrance, He caught sight of the security guard, an older man named Pete who spent most of his shifts reading paperback mysteries. "Pete," Cole said, keeping his voice low, "you see those two guys I texted about?" Pete looked up from his book. "The ones in black and gray?" "Nah, haven't seen them come back." "You really think they were trouble?" "I know they were." Pete frowned. "Should I call it in?" "Already did." "Just keep your eyes open." Cole continued toward the storage room, but something gnawed at him. A feeling he'd learned to trust during his years in reconnaissance. The kind of feeling that saved lives. He stored the equipment, locked the closet, and walked back toward the main hall. Most of the attendees had left. Victoria was gathering her notes from the podium, sliding them into a leather portfolio. Her assistant, a young woman with red hair and a Bluetooth earpiece, stood nearby typing rapidly on a tablet. "Ms. Ashford," the assistant said, "your car's waiting out front. We need to leave in 5 if you're going to make the investor call at 4. Victoria nodded. "Just give me a minute." Cole hesitated. He didn't know this woman. Had no reason to involve himself further. He'd already done more than most people would by chasing off the suspicious men earlier. But then he saw it. Through the glass doors at the front entrance, a dark blue sedan pulled up to the curb. Not unusual. Except the windows were tinted far darker than legal limits allowed. And the car idled there, engine running, but no one got out. Cole's pulse quickened. He moved toward the entrance, angling for a better view. The driver's side window rolled down just an inch. Not enough to see a face. Just enough to see out. Victoria walked toward the exit, her assistant trailing behind, still focused on the tablet. Cole didn't think. He moved. He crossed the lobby in long strides, pushing through the doors just as Victoria stepped outside. The assistant was still inside, holding the door open with one hand. "Miss Ashford," Cole called. She turned, surprised. "Yes?" And that's when the sedan's passenger window rolled down. Cole saw the barrel before anyone else did. Black, compact, already aimed. He didn't shout. Didn't warn. There wasn't time. He lunged forward, grabbed Victoria by the shoulders, and yanked her backward just as the first shot cracked through the air. The bullet shattered the glass door behind them. The assistant screamed and dropped to the ground. Victoria stumbled, her portfolio flying from her hands, papers scattering across the pavement. Cole pulled her behind the concrete pillar near the entrance, shielding her body with his own. 2 more shots rang out, one striking the pillar with a sharp crack, sending chips of concrete spraying. Then the sedan's tires screeched, and the car sped off down the street, disappearing into traffic. Silence. Disappearing into traffic. Silence. Cole's breath came hard and fast. His hands were still on Victoria's shoulders. She stared up at him, eyes wide, mouth open, but no sound coming out. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. She shook her head, unable to speak. The assistant was crying, still on the ground. Pete came running from inside, radio in hand, shouting something about calling 9-1-1. Cole released Victoria and stepped back. She slumped against the pillar, one hand pressed to her chest, trying to catch her breath. "You," she finally managed, voice hoarse. "You saved my life." Cole didn't respond. He was already scanning the street, memorizing details. Dark blue sedan. Tinted windows. No visible plates. Professional. Calculated. Sirens wailed in the distance. Growing louder. Victoria pushed herself upright, still shaking. "Who are you?" "Just maintenance," Cole said quietly. "Maintenance doesn't move like that." Before he could answer, police cars screeched to a halt in front of the building. Officers poured out, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Cole raised his hands instinctively, stepping away from Victoria to avoid any confusion. "He saved her," the assistant shouted, pointing at Cole. "He pulled her out of the way." The officers lowered their weapons slightly, but kept them ready. One of them, a sergeant with gray hair and a weathered face, approached Cole. "Sir, I need you to stay right here. We're going to need a statement." Cole nodded. "Understood." Another officer guided Victoria toward a patrol car, checking her for injuries. She kept looking back at Cole, her expression a mix of shock and something else. Gratitude. Confusion. Maybe both. Paramedics arrived. The assistant was checked for injuries, but was physically fine, just rattled. The shattered glass was cordoned off with yellow tape. Detectives began taking photos, collecting evidence. Cole gave his statement. Described the sedan. The shots. The angle of fire. He left out the part about his military background. Didn't mention the two men from earlier. Just stuck to what happened in those critical seconds. The sergeant studied him carefully. "You former law enforcement?" "Something like that." "Well, you've got good instincts." Most people freeze. Cole said nothing. After an hour, they let him go. He walked back inside the community center, retrieved his jacket from his locker, and headed toward the parking lot. His hands were steady now, but his mind was racing. This wasn't random. This was the second attempt in less than a week. Someone wanted Victoria Ashford, dead badly enough to try again in broad daylight. And they weren't going to stop as Cole reached his truck. He heard footsteps behind him. "Wait," he turned. Victoria stood there, her assistant a few steps behind. She'd composed herself, but her eyes were still rimmed with red. "I didn't get your name," she said. Cole Freeman, Cole." She repeated it, as if committing it to memory. "Thank you. I don't know how you saw that coming, but thank you. Just paying attention. Most people don't." He nodded, unsure what to say. Victoria glanced back at her assistant, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This wasn't random, was it?" "No. Do you know why someone would want me dead?" Cole met her eyes. "I don't. But I'd guess it has something to do with your business. People don't hire shooters over personal grudges." She exhaled slowly, processing. "The police said the same thing. Then they're probably right." Victoria studied him for a long moment. "You're not just maintenance, are you?" "I am now, but you weren't always." Cole didn't answer. He opened his truck door, signaling the end of the conversation. "Wait," she said again. She pulled a business card from her pocket and held it out. "If you think of anything, or if you see those men again, please call me." Direct line. He took the card, glanced at it, then slipped it into his jacket pocket. "Take care of yourself, Miss Ashford." "Victoria." "Just Victoria." He nodded, climbed into his truck, and drove away. In his rearview mirror, he saw her standing there, watching him leave. Victoria didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the barrel of the gun, felt the rough grip of hands pulling her backward, heard the crack of the bullet, striking concrete inches from where her head had been. She sat in her penthouse apartment overlooking the city, a glass of untouched wine on the table beside her. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Portland's skyline, the lights twinkling like scattered stars. Normally she found it calming. Tonight, it felt exposed. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her assistant, checking in. Another missed call from her lawyer. Another email from the board, demanding answers. She ignored them all. Instead, she opened her laptop and typed a name into the search bar. Cole Freeman. The results were sparse. A few social media profiles that didn't match. A LinkedIn page for a Cole Freeman in accounting. Nothing useful. She tried adding Portland to the search. Still nothing concrete. Frustrated, she leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Who was he? He'd moved with precision, with training. The way he'd assessed the threat, reacted without hesitation. That wasn't something you learned in a weekend self-defense class. Military, maybe. Or police. But if he'd been law enforcement, the officers at the scene would have recognized him. She picked up her phone and dialed her head of security, a former Secret Service agent named Raymond Cho. "Ms. Ashford," he answered immediately. "Are you all right?" "Physically, yes. Mentally, I'm not sure yet. I've been briefed on the incident. I'm arranging for a full security detail starting tomorrow. Armed, trained. No one gets within 10 feet of you." "Good, but I need you to do something else. Name it. Find out everything you can about a man named Cole Freeman. Works maintenance at Pinewood Community Center. I need to know who he is." There was a pause. "May I ask why?" "Because he saved my life today, and I need to know if I can trust him." Raymond hesitated. "Understood. I'll have something for you by morning." Victoria ended the call and returned to the window. The city stretched out before her, indifferent to her fear. Somewhere out there, someone wanted her dead. And somewhere out there, a man she didn't know had stepped between her and the bullet without thinking twice. She needed answers. By morning, Raymond had delivered. Victoria sat at her kitchen island, sipping black coffee and reading the report on her tablet. It was thorough. Raymond didn't do anything halfway. Cole Michael Freeman, age 36, former Army Ranger, served 2 tours overseas in reconnaissance and intelligence. Honorably discharged 4 years ago after his wife was killed in a car accident. Single father. 1 daughter, Sophie, age 10. Currently employed as maintenance supervisor at Pinewood Community Center. No criminal record. No social media presence. Keeps to himself. Victoria read it twice, absorbing every detail. Army Ranger. That explained the reflexes, the calm under pressure. But what struck her most was the part about his wife. He'd lost someone, just like she had. She set down the tablet and stared at her coffee. She didn't know why, but she felt a connection to this man. Not romantic. Not yet. Just something deeper. Recognition, maybe. 2 people who'd been through fire and come out the other side different. Her phone buzzed. A text from Raymond. "Security team arrives at noon. Stay inside until then." She typed back, "Understood." But even as she agreed, her mind was elsewhere. She pulled out the business card Cole had taken yesterday. The one with her direct number. Would he call? Probably not. Men like him didn't seek attention. Didn't ask for favors. They just did what needed to be done and moved on. But she couldn't move on. Not yet. She picked up her phone and dialed the community center. Cole was replacing a broken light fixture in the center's gymnasium when his supervisor, Janet, poked her head through the door. "Freeman, you've got a visitor." He climbed down from the ladder, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Who?" "Didn't say. Just asked for you specifically. She's waiting in the lobby." Cole frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. Sophie was at school. Derek wouldn't show up unannounced. He walked to the lobby and stopped short. Victoria Ashford stood near the front desk, dressed in a cream-colored blouse and dark slacks. Her hair was pulled back. She looked polished, professional, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who hadn't slept. "Ms. Ashford," Cole said, surprised. "Victoria," she corrected gently. "Do you have a minute?" He glanced back toward the gym. "I'm on the clock. I'll make it quick." They stepped outside into the cool morning air. Victoria clasped her hands in front of her, suddenly looking less like a billionaire CEO and more like someone trying to find the right words. "I wanted to thank you again," she began. "Properly. Not in a parking lot with police sirens blaring." "You already thanked me." "I know. But it didn't feel like enough." Cole shifted his weight, uncomfortable with the attention. "You don't owe me anything. I owe you my life. You don't." She studied him, tilting her head slightly. "Why did you do it?" "You didn't know me. You had no reason to put yourself in danger." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said simply, because no one else was going to. Victoria's expression softened. You're not like most people, are you? I'm just a guy doing a job. You were a ranger. Cole's jaw tightened. You looked into me. I had to know who saved my life. He didn't respond, but his posture shifted. Guarded now, Victoria took a breath. I'm not here to invade your privacy. I just wanted to understand. And to ask for your help. Help with what? And to ask for your help. Help with what? Someone's trying to kill me. The police are investigating, but they don't have leads. My security team is good, but they didn't see the threat yesterday. You did. Cole shook his head. I'm not a bodyguard. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to consult. Just for a few days. Help me figure out who's behind this. You've got professionals for that. Professionals who didn't stop 2 attempts. Cole looked away, conflicted. He'd built a quiet life. A safe life for Sophie. Getting involved in this, whatever this was, could jeopardize that. But then he thought about the men outside the community center. The gun. The cold calculation in their movements. If he walked away, Victoria would be dead within a week. I have a daughter, he said finally. I can't put her at risk. I understand. But what if helping me keeps her safer? What if whoever's doing this escalates? Starts targeting public places? Cole met her eyes. She wasn't manipulating him. She was scared. Genuinely scared. He exhaled slowly. 1 week. I'll look into it. But if I think it's too dangerous, I'm out. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. She handed him a folder. Everything I know. Police reports. Threatening emails. Business rivals. It's all in here. Cole took it, flipping through the pages. Names, companies, financial records. There's one more thing, Victoria said quietly. I think this is connected to a deal I refused. Orion Capital Group. They've been pressuring me to sell for months. When I kept saying no, things got hostile. Hostile how? Threatening letters. Anonymous calls. And then the attempt started. Cole's expression darkened. You think they're willing to kill you over a business deal? I think they're willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. He closed the folder. Then we need to find proof. We? You want my help or not? A small smile crossed her lips. The first genuine one he'd seen. Yes, I do. Then let's get to work. The coffee shop was quiet at 9 in the morning. Most of the rush had cleared out, leaving behind a scattering of students with laptops and retirees reading newspapers. Cole sat in the corner booth, the folder Victoria had given him spread across the table. He'd been reading for an hour, making notes on a small pad. Connecting dots that others had missed. Victoria arrived precisely at 9:15. Wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky and a navy jacket that probably cost more than Cole's monthly rent. She slid into the seat across from him, glancing around nervously before removing the sunglasses. Anyone follow you? Cole asked without looking up. My security team is outside. 3 cars back. He finally met her eyes. That's not what I asked. She paused. I don't think so. You need to know, not think. Then no. No one followed me. Cole nodded and pushed the folder toward her. I've gone through everything. The threatening emails are generic. Professional, but untraceable. Sent through VPNs and anonymous servers. Whoever's behind this knows what they're doing. What about Orion Capital? On paper, they're clean. But I did some digging. Orion's CEO, Gerald Pemberton, has ties to a private security firm called Titan Solutions. They operate internationally. Officially, they provide corporate security. Unofficially, they've been linked to intimidation tactics in 3 countries. Victoria's face paled. You think Pemberton hired them? I think it's worth investigating. Titan Solutions has an office here in Portland. Industrial District. I want to take a look. That sounds dangerous. It is. Which is why you're not coming. She leaned forward. This is my life they're trying to take. I'm not sitting on the sidelines. Victoria, Cole said, his voice firm but not unkind, you're a target. Every time you step outside, you're vulnerable. Let me handle this part. She wanted to argue. He could see it in the set of her jaw, the fire in her eyes. But she also knew he was right. Fine, she said reluctantly. But I want updates. Every step, deal. Cole closed the folder and stood. Stay with your security team. Don't go anywhere alone. Not even to get coffee. Where are you going? To ask some questions. He left the coffee shop and drove across town toward the industrial district, a stretch of warehouses and shipping facilities near the river. Titan Solutions was listed at a nondescript building with no signage, just a number on the door. Cole parked a block away and approached on foot, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. He'd done this kind of reconnaissance 100 times overseas. The key was to look like you belonged. He walked past the building once, noting the security cameras, the reinforced door, the lack of windows on the ground floor. Then he circled around to the back, where a loading dock sat empty. A man in a black jacket stood near the dock, smoking a cigarette. He was broad-shouldered, ex-military by the look of him. Cole recognized the type. Help you? The man asked, his tone flat. Cole smiled easily. Looking for Titan Solutions. Heard they were hiring. The man exhaled smoke, studying him. We don't hire off the street. Fair enough. Just thought I'd ask. Cole turned to leave. But not before memorizing the man's face, the way he carried himself. The bulge under his jacket that suggested he was armed. Back in his truck. Cole pulled out his phone and typed notes. One guard, armed, professional demeanor. Building secured. No visible activity. He needed more. That evening, Cole picked Sophie up from school. She climbed into the truck with her backpack slung over one shoulder, chattering about her day. We started our science fair projects today, she said excitedly. I picked solar panels like I said. Ms. Ramirez thinks it's a great idea. That's awesome, Soph. You need any help with it? Maybe. I need to figure out how to build a working model. We'll figure it out together. They stopped by the grocery store on the way home. Sophie pushing the cart while Cole grabbed items off the shelves, pasta, vegetables, milk, the mundane rhythm of everyday life. But as they stood in the checkout line, Cole felt it again. That prickling sensation at the back of his neck. He turned slightly, scanning the store. A man in a gray hoodie stood near the magazine rack, pretending to browse. But his eyes kept flicking toward Cole and Sophie. Cole's pulse quickened. He paid for the groceries, took Sophie's hand, and walked calmly toward the exit. Dad? Sophie asked, sensing his tension. What's wrong? Nothing, kiddo. Just thought I forgot something. He loaded the groceries into the truck, buckled Sophie in, and pulled out of the parking lot. In his rearview mirror, he saw the man in the gray hoodie walk out of the store, pull out a phone, and make a call. Cole's jaw tightened. They were watching him now. He drove home, parked in the driveway, and carried the groceries inside. Sophie went straight to her room to start her homework. Cole set the bags on the counter and pulled out his phone, texting Victoria. We have a problem. Her response came seconds later. What kind? They know I'm involved. Someone followed me from the grocery store. Are you safe? For now. But this just escalated. Cole paced the kitchen, mind racing. If they were watching him, they knew about Sophie. And if they were willing to kill Victoria over a business deal, they wouldn't hesitate to use his daughter as leverage. He couldn't let that happen. He walked to Sophie's room and knocked gently. She looked up from her desk, pencil in hand. Hey, Soph. How would you feel about staying with Uncle Derek for a few days? Her face fell. Why? Did I do something wrong? No, nothing like that. I just have some work stuff that might keep me busy. I don't want you here alone. She studied him carefully. Sophie was smart. Too smart sometimes. Is this about that lady? She asked quietly. Cole blinked. What lady? The one from the news. The one someone tried to hurt. You helped her, didn't you? He sat on the edge of her bed, weighing his words. He'd never lied to Sophie. Didn't plan to start now. Yeah, I did. And now you're trying to keep her safe? Something like that. Sophie set down her pencil. Mom used to say you were a protector. That it was who you were. Cole's throat tightened. She said that? Sophie nodded. She said you couldn't help it. That you'd always step in when people needed you. Even if it was scary. He pulled her into a hug, resting his chin on top of her head. I'm going to make sure you're safe first, always. I know, Dad. The next morning, Cole dropped Sophie off at Derek's place. His friend didn't ask questions, just clapped him on the shoulder and promised to keep her entertained with movies and junk food. You need backup. You call me, Derek said seriously. I will. Cole drove back across town and met Victoria at her office. A sleek high-rise with glass walls and minimalist furniture. Her security team was stationed outside the door. 2 men in dark suits who nodded at Cole as he entered. Victoria stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the city. They're escalating, Cole said without preamble. She turned. I know, Raymond told me. They sent another email this morning. She handed him her phone. The message was short. Last chance. Sell or disappear. Cole's expression darkened. They're getting desperate. That's good. Good? How is that good? Desperate people make mistakes. We just need to push them a little harder. And how do we do that? Cole pulled out his phone and showed her a photo he'd taken outside Titan Solutions. We make them think you're about to expose them. Leak a story to the press. Something about Orion Capital's connection to Titan. Force their hand. Victoria hesitated. That could backfire. It could. But right now, they're in control. We need to take that away from them. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. A long moment, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. That afternoon, a local investigative journalist received an anonymous tip about Orion Capital's ties to a private security firm with a questionable history. The story hit online by evening, complete with financial records and allegations of corporate intimidation. Cole watched the news coverage from Victoria's office. Within an hour, Orion Capital issued a statement denying all allegations and threatening legal action. They're rattled, Cole said. Victoria stood beside him, watching the same broadcast. What happens now? Now we wait. And we watch. But they didn't have to wait long. At 10:30 that night, Victoria's building's fire alarm went off. The security team immediately moved her toward the stairwell, but Cole stopped them. Wait, he said, pulling out his phone. He accessed the building's security camera feed. Something Raymond had given him access to earlier. On the screen, he saw them. 3 men in maintenance uniforms entering through the parking garage. They moved with purpose, not panic. It's a distraction, Cole said. They're coming for you. Victoria's face went pale. What do we do? Cole's mind raced. They were on the 23rd floor. The stairwells would be compromised. The elevators were automatic lockdown during a fire alarm. We go up, he said. Up? To the roof. Come on. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the emergency stairs. The security team followed, weapons drawn. They climbed quickly, the alarm blaring in their ears, echoing off the concrete walls. Cole's lungs burned by the time they reached the roof access door. He kicked it open, and they spilled out onto the flat rooftop, the city lights stretching out in every direction. Now what? Victoria gasped, trying to catch her breath. Cole pulled out his phone and dialed 911. This is Cole Freeman. I'm on the roof of the Ashford Renewable Building with Victoria Ashford. Armed intruders in the building. We need immediate assistance. The dispatcher's voice crackled through. Units are on the way. Stay where you are. Cole hung up and turned to the security team. Cover the door. No one comes through. They nodded, taking positions. Victoria stood beside Cole, shaking but standing. This is insane. Yeah, Cole agreed. But you're still alive. Below, sirens wailed. Police cars screeched to a halt in front of the building. Helicopter searchlights swept across the rooftop dot, and in that moment, standing on top of the world with danger at their heels, something shifted between them. Not romance. Not yet, but trust. Deep and unshakable. Thank you, Victoria whispered. Cole nodded. We're not done yet. The police swept the building floor by floor. It took 40 minutes before they gave the all-clear. By then, Cole, Victoria, and her security team had been escorted down via helicopter to a secure location. A safe house on the outskirts of Portland that Raymond had arranged years ago for exactly this kind of emergency. The house was modest but fortified. Reinforced doors. Security cameras. Panic room in the basement. Victoria sat on the couch in the living room, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the warmth inside. She looked exhausted, shaken, but alive. Cole stood by the window, watching the street. Raymond was on the phone in the kitchen, coordinating with the police. The two other security guards were stationed at the front and back doors. They found the men, Raymond said, walking into the living room. Detained them in the parking garage. All three are refusing to talk. No ID, no phones, professionals. Cole turned from the window. What about Titan Solutions? Police are getting a warrant. Should have it by morning. Victoria looked up. Will that be enough? It's a start, Cole said. But we need more than just hired muscle. We need the person who hired them. Raymond crossed his arms. Pemberton? That's my guess. But we need proof. Something that ties him directly to the attempts. Victoria stood, letting the blanket fall from her shoulders. What if we get him to admit it? Both men looked at her. How? Raymond asked. By making him think he's won. Cole studied her. You want to bait him. I want to end this. I'm tired of running. Tired of being afraid. That's a dangerous game, Cole warned. So is doing nothing. Raymond shook his head. Ms. Ashford, with all due respect, putting yourself in front of Pemberton right now is suicide. Not if we control the environment, Victoria countered. Not if we're ready for him. Cole was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, it could work. But we'd need leverage. Something to make him feel comfortable enough to talk. Like what? Victoria asked. Like making him think you're about to sign. She blinked. Sign what? The deal. Tell him you're ready to sell Ashford Renewable. Arrange a meeting. Somewhere public but controlled. We record everything. Get him to slip. Raymond looked skeptical. That's a lot of assumptions. What if he doesn't take the bait? Then we're no worse off than we are now, Cole said. But if he does, we have him. Victoria nodded slowly. I'll do it, Victoria, Raymond started, but she cut him off. I'll do it, she repeated firmly. Set up the meeting. The next morning, Victoria sent an email to Gerald Pemberton through her lawyer. The message was simple. I'm ready to discuss terms. Let's meet. Pemberton's response came within an hour. Tomorrow, noon, the Harborview Hotel. Conference Room B. Cole read the message over Victoria's shoulder. He's eager. Too eager, Raymond muttered. That's what we want, Cole said. Eager means careless. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Raymond's team swept the conference room at the Harborview Hotel, planting discreet recording devices in the light fixtures and under the table. Cole studied the building layout, identifying exits, blind spots, potential threats. Victoria reviewed her talking points with her lawyer, a sharp woman named Diane Chun who'd been with her since the beginning. "You sure about this?" Diane asked, concern etched on her face. "No," Victoria admitted, "but I don't see another option." That night, Cole sat with Victoria in the safe house kitchen. She was making tea, her hands still trembling slightly. He watched her for a moment, then spoke. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." She set down the kettle. "There is no other way. You said it yourself. We need him to talk. I also said it's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous." She turned to face him. "But I'm not backing down. Not anymore." Cole admired that. Her strength. Her refusal to be a victim. "Your daughter," Victoria said suddenly. "Sophie, does she know what you're doing?" "She knows I'm helping someone. She doesn't know the details. You're a good father." "I'm trying to be." Victoria smiled faintly. "Emily would be proud." Cole's jaw tightened. "You read that in the report?" "I did. I'm sorry. I can't imagine losing someone like that." "It changes you," Cole said quietly. "Makes you realize how fragile everything is." "Is that why you stepped in?" "At the community center?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I stepped in because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't." Victoria nodded, understanding that they sat in comfortable silence, sipping tea, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware of the storm brewing. The next day arrived too quickly. Cole dressed in plain clothes, a dark jacket over a gray shirt. He carried no weapon. The hotel had metal detectors, and he couldn't risk being flagged. But Raymond's team would be stationed throughout the building, ready to move if things went wrong. Victoria wore a charcoal suit, her hair pulled back. Every inch the composed CEO, but Cole could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers drummed against her thigh in the car. "You ready?" he asked as they pulled up to the hotel. She took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." They entered through the main lobby. Raymond and two of his team were already inside, positioned near the elevators and conference room hallway. Cole and Victoria took the elevator to the third floor. Conference room B was at the end of the hall. Through the glass door, Cole could see Gerald Pemberton already seated at the table, flanked by two men in suits. Lawyers, probably. Or handlers. Victoria paused outside the door. "What if this doesn't work?" "Then we improvise." She looked at him, and for a moment he saw fear. Real, raw fear. But then she squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked through the door. Cole followed, taking a seat against the back wall. Pemberton's eyes flicked to him, then back to Victoria. "Ms. Ashford," Pemberton said smoothly, standing to shake her hand. "I'm glad you've come to your senses." Victoria sat across from him, folding her hands on the table. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Gerald. You know why I'm here. To finalize the sale, I hope. To understand why you tried to have me killed." The room went silent. Pemberton's smile didn't falter, but something cold flashed in his eyes. "That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Do you have proof?" Victoria leaned forward. "I have 3 men in custody who were paid to kill me. I have financial records linking Orion Capital to Titan Solutions. And I have witnesses." Pemberton glanced at his lawyers, then back at Victoria. "This is absurd. We're a legitimate investment firm. You're a criminal organization hiding behind corporate paperwork." His smile finally faded. "Careful, Victoria. Defamation is a serious charge. So is attempted murder." Cole watched the exchange carefully. Pemberton was rattled, but he wasn't breaking. "Not yet." Then Victoria played her final card. "I'm willing to make a deal. she said. You drop the attempts on my life, and I'll sell you 40% of Ashford Renewable. Non-voting shares. You get your profit. I keep control. Pemberton studied her. And if I refuse? Pemberton studied her. And if I refuse? Then I go to the press with everything. Your firm, your connections, your methods. By the time I'm done, Orion Capital will be radioactive. Pemberton was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned back in his chair and laughed. A cold, hollow sound. You think you're clever, he said. But you're just desperate. I'm determined. There's a difference. He stood, buttoning his jacket. You have until Friday to reconsider. Otherwise, we'll proceed as planned. Proceed with what? Victoria asked, her voice steady. Pemberton smiled. With acquiring your company. One way or another. He walked out, his lawyers following. The door closed behind them, and Victoria exhaled slowly. Cole stood. Did you get it? Raymond's voice crackled through the earpiece Cole wore. Every word. That last line is enough for intent. We've got him. Victoria looked at Cole, relief flooding her face. We did it. Not yet, Cole said. But we're close. Outside the hotel, police were already moving into position. Within the hour, Gerald Pemberton would be arrested. Titan Solutions would be raided. And the conspiracy that had nearly cost Victoria her life would finally unravel. But as Cole walked Victoria back to the car, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not yet. The arrest happened at 3:45 in the afternoon. Gerald Pemberton was walking out of Orion Capital's headquarters when federal agents surrounded him on the sidewalk. Cameras caught everything. His look of shock. The handcuffs. The perp walked to the waiting vehicle. By evening, every news station in Portland was running the story. Billionaire investor arrested in assassination plot. Corporate conspiracy unravels. CEO Victoria Ashford safe after months of terror. Cole watched the coverage from the safe house living room. Victoria sat beside him, phone buzzing constantly with calls from reporters, board members, investors. She ignored them all. It's really over, she said quietly. The immediate threat is, Cole replied. But the trial will take months. Maybe longer. I know. But at least I can breathe now. Raymond walked in, holding a tablet. Ms. Ashford, the district attorney wants to meet with you tomorrow. They'll need your testimony for the grand jury. Victoria nodded. I'll be there. There's something else, Raymond continued. During the raid on Titan Solutions, they found records. Payments going back 18 months. Pemberton didn't just target you. There were others. Business owners who refused to sell. Politicians who wouldn't cooperate. All of them experienced accidents, threats, worse. Victoria's face paled. How many? At least 7 that we know of. 3 are dead. The room fell silent. Cole felt a cold anger settle in his chest. This wasn't just corporate greed. This was systematic elimination of anyone who stood in Pemberton's way. Will they testify? Victoria asked. The ones still alive? Yes. The DI is building a RICO case. Racketeering, conspiracy, multiple counts of attempted murder. Pemberton won't see daylight for decades. Victoria exhaled slowly. Good. Over the next 2 weeks, the case against Gerald Pemberton and Orion Capital grew stronger. More victims came forward. More evidence surfaced. Bank records. Encrypted communications. Testimony from former Titan Solutions employees who'd been promised immunity in exchange for cooperation. Cole stayed close to Victoria throughout. Not as a bodyguard anymore, but as something else. A friend, a presence. Someone who understood what it meant to face darkness and come through the other side. Sophie came back home after a week with Derek. She bounded through the door with her backpack and immediately hugged Cole. I missed you, Dad, missed you too. Kiddo, she pulled back, studying his face. Is the scary stuff over? Yeah, it's over. Good, because my science fair project is due in 3 days, and I need your help building the solar panel model. Cole laughed. Deal. That weekend, Cole invited Victoria to his apartment. It was the first time she'd seen where he lived. The modest 2-bedroom with its worn furniture and Sophie's drawings, taped to the refrigerator. Victoria stood in the kitchen, looking at a crayon picture of a stick figure man holding a smaller stick figure's hand. She drew that after her mom died, Cole said, coming up beside her. Said it was me and her against the world. Victoria touched the paper gently. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. Sophie emerged from her room, carrying a half-assembled solar panel made from cardboard, aluminum foil, and small LED lights. She stopped when she saw Victoria. Oh, hi. Hi, Victoria said, smiling. I'm Victoria. I know. You're the lady my dad saved. Victoria glanced at Cole, amused. He told you? Not exactly. I figured it out from the news. Sophie set down her project. Are you two friends now? Cole opened his mouth to answer, but Victoria spoke first. Yeah, we are. Sophie grinned. Cool. Want to help with my science project? And so, for the next 2 hours, the three of them sat at Cole's small kitchen table, assembling a working model of a solar panel. Victoria, despite her expertise in renewable energy, let Sophie take the lead, offering suggestions, but never taking over. Cole watched them work together. Something warm and unfamiliar settling in his chest. Maybe, he thought. This was what moving forward looked like. The trial began 6 weeks later. The courthouse was packed. Reporters lined the steps outside. Security was heavy. Cole sat in the gallery, watching as Victoria took the stand. She wore a navy suit, her posture straight, her voice steady. She recounted everything. The first attempt outside her office. The shooting at the community center. The men in her building. The fear that had consumed her life for months. And then she talked about Cole. He didn't know me, she said, her voice clear. He had no reason to help. But he did. Without hesitation. Without asking for anything in return. He reminded me that there are still good people in this world. People who stand up when it matters. Cole shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He didn't like the attention. Didn't want to be called a hero. He'd just done what needed to be done. But as Victoria spoke, he realized something. This wasn't about him. It was about the message. About showing that ordinary people could make a difference. That courage didn't require a uniform or a title. Just a willingness to act. The defense tried to discredit her. Tried to paint her as paranoid, as someone fabricating threats to gain sympathy. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the testimony from other victims, the financial trail. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Gerald Pemberton stood as the verdict was read, his face expressionless. But Cole saw it. The moment his composure cracked. The realization that he'd lost everything. Outside the courthouse, Victoria stood at a podium surrounded by microphones. Cole stayed back, near the edge of the crowd. Today, Victoria began, justice was served. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been bullied, threatened, or silenced by those with more power. This case proved that no one is above the law. That courage and truth will always prevail. She paused, scanning the crowd until her eyes found Cole. And I want to thank the man who saved my life. Who stepped in when no one else would. Who reminded me that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it simply shows up. The crowd turned, cameras swiveling toward Cole. He felt his face flush, uncomfortable under the scrutiny. But he didn't look away. Victoria smiled at him. A silent thank you. Later that evening, After the reporters had dispersed and the courthouse had emptied, Cole and Victoria stood on the steps alone. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You didn't have to mention me," Cole said. "Yes, I did. You deserve recognition. I don't need it. Maybe not. But Sophie does. She should know that her father is a hero." Cole was quiet. Then he said, "She already knows." Victoria laughed softly. "Fair point." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city transition from day to night. "What happens now?" Cole asked. "Now? I rebuild. Get back to work. Try to remember what normal feels like. Good luck with that." She turned to him. "What about you? Back to fixing light fixtures and unclogging drains?" Cole shrugged. "It's honest work." "It is. But you're capable of more." "Maybe, but maybe I'm right where I need to be." Victoria studied him for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "What's this?" Cole asked. "A job offer. Head of security for Ashford Renewable. Full benefits. Salary that would let you give Sophie everything she deserves." Cole stared at the envelope, then at her. "Victoria, I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm not that person anymore. I left that life behind." "You never left it behind," she said gently. "You just channeled it differently. This isn't about going back to who you were. It's about using your skills to protect people who need it. Legally, ethically, making a real difference." Cole didn't open the envelope, but he didn't hand it back either. "Think about it," Victoria said. "No pressure. But the offer stands." She walked down the steps toward her waiting car, leaving Cole alone with his thoughts. 3 months later, the Cole Freeman Community Safety Initiative launched quietly in a renovated building on the east side of Portland. The space had once been a shuttered boxing gym, but now it was something more. Something vital. The walls were painted a warm cream color. Mats covered the floor. Punching bags hung from reinforced beams. But this wasn't just a gym. It was a sanctuary. A place where people could learn to protect themselves, to stand up, to fight back against fear. To stand up, to fight back against fear. Victoria stood near the entrance, watching as the first class filed in. Single mothers, teenagers, elderly residents from the neighborhood. People who'd been victims. People who refused to be victims anymore. Cole stood at the front of the room in a plain black t-shirt and cargo pants. No uniform. No rank. Just himself. "Welcome," he said, his voice carrying easily through the space. "You're here because you want to feel safer, stronger, more capable. And I'm here to help you get there." He paused, letting his words settle. "I'm not going to teach you to be soldiers. I'm going to teach you to be aware. To recognize danger. To respond effectively. Most importantly, I'm going to teach you that you have the right to defend yourself. That you don't have to be a victim." A woman in the front row raised her hand. "What if we freeze? What if we can't fight back?" Cole met her eyes. "Then we practice until freezing isn't your first response. It's not about being fearless. It's about acting despite the fear." The class nodded, and they began. Victoria watched from the sidelines, a smile playing at her lips. She'd funded the initiative, provided the building, hired instructors. But Cole was the heart of it. The reason it worked. After the class ended, Cole walked over to where she stood. "Good turnout," he said. 23 people. More than we expected for the first week. Word spreading. "It is. There's a waiting list for next month's session." Cole shook his head amazed. "Never thought I'd be doing this, but you're good at it." "I'm still figuring it out." Victoria handed him a folder. Applications for assistant instructors. Raymond vetted them. All former law enforcement or military. All good people. Cole flipped through the pages, Faces, backgrounds, skills, each one someone who wanted to give back. To help others the way he was helping. "This is really happening," he said quietly. "It is. And it's because of you." He looked at her. Over the past 3 months, they'd spent more time together. Planning the initiative. Navigating the aftermath of the trial. Building something that mattered. Somewhere along the way, friendship had deepened into something more. Not rushed. Not forced. Just natural. "Thank you," Cole said, "for believing in this. In me. You saved my life, Cole. This is the least I could do. It's more than that. You gave me purpose again. Showed me I could still make a difference." Victoria smiled. "We make a good team. Yeah, we do." Sophie burst through the front door, backpack bouncing. She'd been at her friend's house working on a new project. "Dad." "Miss Victoria." "Guess what?" "What?" They said in unison. "I won second place in the science fair. My solar panel worked perfectly." Cole scooped her up in a hug. "That's amazing, Soph. I'm so proud of you." Victoria high-fived her. "I knew you'd do great." Sophie beamed. Then she looked between the two of them. "Are you two dating?" Cole nearly choked. Victoria laughed. "Sophie," Cole said, setting her down. "That's not something you just ask. Why not? You smile more when she's around. And she laughs at your terrible jokes." "My jokes aren't terrible. Dad, they really are." Victoria was still laughing. "She's got a point." Cole looked at Victoria, then at Sophie, then back at Victoria. And for the first time in years, he felt something he'd thought was lost forever. Hope. "Come on," he said, ruffling Sophie's hair. "Let's go get pizza. We're celebrating. Can Miss Victoria come?" Cole looked at her. "You free?" "Always." They walked out together, 3 people who'd found each other in the chaos. Who'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. The sun was setting as they drove across town. Sophie chattering in the back seat about her project, about her friends. About everything and nothing. Cole glanced at Victoria in the passenger seat. She was looking out the window, a soft smile on her face. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She turned to him. "Yeah, I really am." And she meant it. 6 months later, the initiative had expanded to 3 locations across Portland. Cole had hired 4 assistant instructors and was training a 5th. Over 200 people had gone through the program, learning not just self-defense, but confidence, empowerment, community. Victoria's company had rebounded stronger than ever. The trial had brought unwanted attention, but it had also highlighted her resilience. Investors who'd once been wary now clamored to partner with her. Ashford Renewable Solutions became a symbol not just of clean energy, but of standing up to corruption. On a crisp autumn evening, Cole and Victoria stood on the balcony of her penthouse. The city sparkled below them, alive and vibrant. "I got an offer today," Victoria said, "from a national foundation. They want to fund the initiative in 10 more cities." Cole turned to her. 10 cities? They saw what we built here. They want to replicate it. That's incredible. It is. But it means more work. More travel. Are you ready for that? Cole looked out at the city. A year ago, he'd been content with his small life, his quiet routine. But now he saw the impact they could have, the lives they could change. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." Victoria slipped her hand into his. "Good, because I can't do this without you." He squeezed her hand gently. "You could, but I'm glad you don't have to." They stood together as the stars began to appear. 2 people who'd survived darkness and chosen to build light. Below, in a coffee shop near the community center, Sophie sat with her friends, working on homework. On the wall above their table hung a framed photo. Cole in the center, surrounded by the first graduating class of the safety initiative. all of them smiling. All of them stronger. And beneath the photo, a small plaque. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. The story didn't end with a dramatic finale. It ended with a choice. The choice to stand up, to help, to keep going even when it was hard. Because that's what heroes do. Not because they're fearless, but because they refuse to look away. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.